my name is Cassie and I am the creator of Pieces of Scrap, and in today's video we're going to be doing another Will It Crochet AI generated pattern video. If you're not familiar with these videos, I ask my husband to generate me some AI generated patterns using ChatGPT or Meta AI or some other similar AI service, and he generates me one or two patterns, and from those patterns I have to make some plushies. So in the first video you saw that I made this bear who was supposed to be wearing some overalls, and he's supposed to be a fisher, so this is supposed to be his fishing pole, and this is supposed to be some sort of fish. I think it was a salmon or something like that, but it ended up kind of looking like a goldfish. I was actually pretty surprised that this pattern came out so well. That video also had some other patterns in it. I think there were 3 patterns total that I was tasked to complete in that video, but I only finished 2. And the second one I ended up taking apart because it was just a bunch of pieces that I couldn't make into anything. So that video was definitely a challenge. And then in the last video, we made this goofy looking fox with a monocle and top hat. So that is the series of patterns that we did in that video. We had the top hat pattern, which is actually supposed to come out a lot larger than it is, but I made it so that it fits on this little fox here. And obviously this fox came out really goofy, but pretty cute overall. But for today's video, we are tasked with completing 2 patterns, and I haven't looked very closely at these patterns yet. My husband emailed them to me later last night, and I saved them onto my tablet here, and I also have the pattern up on my computer. And what's actually funny about these patterns is that when he generates the patterns, he then puts them into a Word doc and he creates like clip art titles, but for whatever reason in Google Docs the clip art titles do not always work. So the first title here says first pattern, and it was originally clip art, but it wasn't coming up properly, so I just like typed it out. But down here for the second pattern, we actually do have the clip art title appearing, and it's like just orange text, nothing special. But it's funny because when I have the Word document pulled up on my actual computer screen in Word doc instead of on Google Drive using Google Docs, the clip art is actually working and it looks a lot different, which is pretty funny. How this video typically works is I take you through what the patterns written out look like, what they require of me before I ever even get into crocheting. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the pattern is requiring of us. So the first pattern says it requires bulky weight white yarn, approximately 1,000 grams. We also need red yarn, approximately 100 grams. We need black yarn, approximately 20 grams. Then we need a 10mm crochet hook, polyester fiber fill, scissors, stitch markers, and a tapestry needle. What I find kind of funny about the yarn weights that we have here is typically I'm not used to measuring out yarn in grams. I don't even have like a scale that can weigh in grams. I think my scale weighs in ounces, so typically when I'm weighing my yarn, I weigh it out in ounces. And I'm also pretty familiar with sizes of yarns using the total amount of yards typically. So this is definitely a weird measurement that I'm not used to seeing, but it definitely shows that we're gonna need a lot of white yarn and a little bit of red yarn and even less black yarn. But we'll see if that's even accurate, because in the past, like for example for the bear, the fisher pattern, it called for like blue yarn and we didn't end up even using blue yarn. There was also some other yarn that was required for that pattern for like a belly patch we didn't end up using at all. But I was surprised when we did this fox pattern that we actually used all the colors that the pattern asked for. But in terms of this pattern, we will see how that comes out, if we're actually going to be using all of those colors, if it's going to add in some random colors. You really never know what AI is going to do. Underneath the material section, we have a gauge swatch, and I never actually do the gauge swatch. I feel like for amigurumi patterns specifically, gauge isn't super important at all. And then underneath that we have abbreviations for chain, double crochet, single crochet, stitch, and slip stitch. Then we're getting into the pattern itself. The first part of the pattern is a house body. So I guess we're making a house. It says to start with white yarn, and then we have some instructions in here about what to do in the first row. And then we actually have some fun facts in this pattern. So the first fun fact is, did you know the shortest war in history was between Britain and Zanzibar on August 27th, 1896, and lasted only 38 minutes. Good grief, that's what it says. And then after that we have a round instruction and then a fun fact, which the fun fact is the longest recorded flight of a chicken is 13 seconds. So we've got some pretty random facts in this pattern so far. Not sure what they are there for, or if they even apply to what this is going to end up being, if it's truly going to be a house or if it's going to have some weird little facets into it that we incorporate these facts into somehow. The instructions for rounds 2 to 11 just have us repeat round 1, which is just double crocheting in each stitch around. And then there is a fun fact. The fun fact is there is a species of jellyfish that is immortal, the Turritopus dorni. I really probably butchered that pronunciation, but it's also known as the immortal jellyfish. It can transform its body into a younger state through a process called transdifferentiation. Whoa! And then there's another fact below that one. We don't have any steps between these two facts, unlike the first two. It says random fact. The longest recorded word that can be typed using only the left hand on a standard keyboard is stewardess is, like multiple stewardesses, I guess. Next up in the pattern we have instructions for a roof, plus a couple random facts, and then we get into instructions for a door with red yarn, and then some random facts. Then there's instructions for a window. Actually, it says windows, and we're supposed to make 5 to 6 windows with some random facts in here. Then we also have assembly instructions, special stitches such as double crochet 2 together, which is essentially a double crochet decrease. And then we have some tips at the bottom, such as use stitch markers to mark the beginning of each round. Make sure to stuff the house body firmly to maintain its shape. And the last tip at the bottom here is you can adjust the size of the house by changing hook size or the number of starting stitches. That's kind of interesting. I don't usually see patterns that say like change the number of starting stitches to change the size of your finished product, which is really interesting. So that is the first pattern we have here. I will share the random facts that are in here on screen as I'm doing my crochet time lapses, just so that we have a little bit of a surprise going through. And I might also do some voiceover in those areas as well, so that you guys don't have to look up from your project as well if you're crocheting along with me. So now that we've gotten through that first pattern, let's look at that second pattern. Starting off with the materials, it says to use medium weight brown yarn, approximately 500 grams, cream colored yarn, approximately 100 grams, black yarn, approximately 20 grams. We're going to use a 6mm crochet hook, stuffing material, scissors, stitch markers, a tapestry needle. And then it tells us our gauge, which isn't really relevant for amigurumi. Then we're going into the abbreviation section, which is identical to the first pattern. We're just using chain, double crochet, single crochet, stitch, and slip stitch. And then it goes directly into the pattern itself, and it just starts off telling you that it's a body. So we don't know what pattern this is. Hopefully it's decent. Using just the colors brown, cream, and black. Not sure what it's going to be. Maybe it'll be another bear. We're starting with brown yarn. It tells you to take stretch breaks throughout the instructions of this pattern today. And it gives you instructions about how to stretch specifically, so we'll have to make sure we take those stretch breaks during this pattern. This pattern has instructions for a body, head, ears, whiskers, eyes, and then we assemble. And at the bottom again, there's also a special stitch of double crochet 2 together, which is essentially again a double crochet decrease. And then we have that same tips at the bottom of just using stitch markers, stuff firmly, and also actually it kind of reveals what it is at the bottom. So I won't reveal that to you yet, but it does say that you can change the size by changing your hook size or the number of starting stitches. Probably not going to do that again. We're just going to do what it says to do. But I already know what it is now, which is kind of disappointing. I was hoping that it would be a surprise to me. I didn't realize that it was going to spoil it for me at the bottom, but I won't spoil it for you. You're going to have to guess what you think it is. Now that we finished our magic ring, I need to tell you about our first fun fact, which I've already told you, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. Did you know the shortest war in history was between Britain and Zanzibar on August 27th, 1896, and it lasted only 38 minutes? Good grief. I thought it would also be pretty funny if for every fun fact that the pattern states that I also just double check that they're true, and this one turns out to be true. Our next fun fact is that the longest recorded flight of a chicken is 13 seconds, and it turns out that this fact is also true. Our next fun fact is, did you know there is a species of jellyfish that is immortal? The Turritopsis dohrnii, also known as the immortal jellyfish, can transform its body into a younger state through a process called transdifferentiation. Whoa! And this fact is also true. Alright, I got another random fact for you. This one is that the longest recorded word that can be typed using only the left hand on a standard keyboard is stewardesses. This fact is actually incorrect, according to Wikipedia. It says the longest words typable with only the left hand using conventional hand placement on a QWERTY keyboard are tesseradicadius. Oh, I'm just gonna butcher these, I'm so sorry. After cataracts, dereverberates, and more common, but sometimes hyphenated, sweater dresses. So that one wasn't even remotely right. Are y'all ready for the first new fun fact of the pattern? This one is, did you know the Great Wall of China is not visible from space despite its reputation as being the longest man-made structure in the world? According to Google, this isn't 100% correct. It says the Great Wall of China is visible from the lower part of low Earth orbit, but only under very favorable conditions. So I guess technically you can see it from space sometimes.
I am the least excited for this next one because it's another word that I am definitely going to butcher. But the fun fact is, the longest word in the English language, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, is pneumo-ultramicroscopic ciliovolcanoosis.
Pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
Close enough. Which is a lung disease caused by inhaling very fine particles of silica. This fact is true. Alright, I gotta catch up on facts here because there was one I missed from the roof section, and it is the random fact that the longest recorded duration without sleep is 264.4 hours or 11 days, set by Randy Gardner in 1964. According to Wikipedia, this is correct. However, it was between December 1963 and January 1964, so technically it's 1963 into 1964, but I'll give it to him. This is true. Okay, our first fact from the door section is, did you know the first computer bug was an actual insect that got stuck in the Harvard Mark II computer in 1947? And according to Google, this is also correct. It was a moth. Our next fun fact is that the longest recorded duration of a person holding their breath is 24 minutes and 3 seconds, set by Ahmed Gabar of Egypt in 2014. According to Google, this one is incorrect. As of 2021, the highest record is by Budimir Sabat, who held his breath for 24 minutes and 37 seconds. Our next fun fact is that the longest recorded snowflake was 15 inches or 38 centimeters wide and 8 inches or 20 centimeters thick. Mamma mia, like a pizza. This fact is true according to Google. This next one is weird, and I don't even know why there's a record for it, but apparently the longest recorded duration of a person spinning a basketball on a toothbrush is 33.33 seconds. But this is incorrect because according to the Guinness World Records website, in 2022, The longest duration of spinning a basketball on a toothbrush is now 1 minute and 47.4 seconds. So this fact is false.
Hey guys, so it's a new day. I started kind of late yesterday, so I wasn't able to get a lot done, but I started on the first pattern and I got all of the parts that I needed done, and I actually did it in 2 ways, because the last video that I did, I saw a lot of comments of people saying that maybe I should have tried in single crochet instead of double crochet, because most of the instructions were in double crochet, and that's the same as this time. So just to show you guys a little bit of the difference, it doesn't make much of a difference. It does for like the gapping in between stitches, but overall the shape is the same. But let me grab those. All right, so here is the house part of the pattern. As you can see here, all of these double crochets cause a lot of gaps. It's also just like a large cylinder shape. And this is what that looks like if you just do it in single crochets instead of the double crochets. So it's a little bit bigger than half of that size. It does make gapping less of an issue here, but overall still basically the same shape. And this is the roof. It's basically the same shape as the house, except there are less double crochets in the magic ring that you start with. And here is the single crochet version of it. It's black because in the pattern it has you do the roof in white, but if I were to make a roof, I would make it in black, so that's why the single crochet version is in black instead of white. Here is a size comparison for the roof portion versus the house portion. It's obviously a little bit skinnier, not as wide as the original house piece, but it is basically the same shape as is the single crochet version. Then for the door, we have this red smaller version of both of those pieces, and then here is the single crochet version. So as you can see, it's just a lot of the same parts but different sizes, so that makes it really interesting and kind of creates an issue when we're thinking about assembling this. I might have to be a little bit creative, especially since the assembly instructions are so vague. It doesn't even tell you when you finish each of these pieces to sew it closed or to stuff it. So we have a lot of room to think creatively here when assembling this, so that's a good thing. Again, here is a size comparison of all the double crochet pieces. So the house portion is the largest bit, the roof is about 2/3 that size, and then the door is a little bit more than 2/3 the size of the roof. So very interesting situation we've put ourselves in here, where we're gonna just, like I said, I have to be very creative when assembling this to make it look like a house. And then here is that size comparison with the single crochet pieces instead. Same deal here. There are slight size differences, but overall the same shape for every single piece. The pattern calls for you to make 4 to 6 windows. I don't know how I would have fit 6 windows on each one of these houses, so I just ended up making 4, and basically it's just a chain 2 and then you double crochet into the second chain. So overall I kind of tried to pull them apart at opposite corners to make the windows a little bit more square, so that they don't just look like, I don't know, a triangle, because that's kind of what the shape looks like if you don't pull it apart like this. But I think this is the best that I can do with the pattern. In total, I made 8 windows, so 4 for each one of these houses, and now we're at the assembly stage, so we're gonna have to fit things together and see what we can do with the parts that we have. Hey guys, so I finished the first pattern in two different options, I suppose. So I assembled it two different ways, but they're basically the same way. So first off, starting with the double crochet one with the white roof. It looks really weird. I showed it to my husband and he says it looks like a bird. I suppose I can see it a little, or maybe like a koala bear or something like that. Like just a weird face here. Like with the red door being the nose, the black being the eyes, and then like the ears up top maybe, I don't know. Here is the single crochet one. It's much smaller. The way that I assembled this is essentially the same, except instead of having the house like this and putting the roof on top, I changed the orientation a little bit so it's vertically taller instead of like horizontal orientation, I suppose. So we're like looking at portrait mode instead of landscape mode. That's a good way of putting it. But anyway, I couldn't fit as many windows on this one, so we have 3 windows total, and overall it looks a lot nicer and a lot more like a house than I think this one does. But overall still not really obvious that it's a house, in my opinion. I know that it's a house because that's what the pattern says, but if I was to show this to like some random person who hasn't seen this video or knows the context of this video at all, they'd probably be like, what is that supposed to be? So anyway, we are gonna go ahead and get started on our second pattern now, and it starts with brown yarn, and there's quite a few pieces to the pattern. There's a body, a head, ears, whiskers, eyes, and then we assemble the final product. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with that, and Rhea is currently trying to get in my lap. But anyway, let's go ahead and start crocheting.
Alright, so in the pattern it tells us we need to stretch. So the first stretch we're doing is to stretch our fingers, wrists, and arms. Wiggle those fingers and toes to keep them loose and relaxed. Time for another stretch break. This time we're going to put down our hook and yarn, and you're going to stretch your arms over your head, then bend to touch your toes, and don't forget to stretch those toes, curl them under, and then stretch them out again. stretch those fingers. Take a minute to stretch each finger individually and then stretch all your fingers together. The next stretch is don't forget to stretch your wrists. Take a minute to rotate your wrists in a circular motion and then stretch your wrists up and down.
Hey guys, so I finished the capybara pattern now, or not finished, but I've finished all the pieces for the capybara pattern, and I'm about to show you the results from that. Again, I made it in both double crochet and single crochet because the pattern calls for double crochet stitches in every single row, but like I said earlier, some people might attribute that to maybe the AI referencing some patterns that are using UK terminology, which DC in UK terminology refers to a single crochet and not a double crochet. So that is why I'm doing that, but also so that we can see if we can really get this pattern to work using the stitches that you would normally use to make something that is an amigurumi. So first off, we have the body. This is the body using double crochet stitches. As you can see, not sure this really even looks like a body, maybe more like a tail of like a cat or something. And this one right here is what that looks like using single crochet stitches. And as you can see, it is like exactly half of that size of the double crochet piece of the body. So that is the difference there. Next up, we have the head. Here is the double crochet head, not a circle at all, just like another tail piece, it looks like. And then here is the single crochet head. So we're probably gonna have to wad that up something like this, sort of like we did with the house, to make that a shape that we can actually work with, I think. Just so that it actually looks like a head and we can make this try to look like a capybara. Next up, we have the ears, and this was definitely a piece that just looked really strange. Here are our ears, and also in the pattern I'm kind of cheating because it doesn't tell you to make two, it just tells you to make one piece. So we have extra here in case we can't make this one piece work. But again, I think typically in an amigurumi pattern you're making two ears and not just one ear. Then we have the single crochet ears, which are a lot smaller. They're about half the size again, so a little bit closer to an ear shape. I think we'll be able to make these look a little bit more like a round bear ear or something like that. That might help with trying to make it come across as an ear. Next up, we have the whiskers, and these do not look like whiskers at all, guys. They're like little teardrop shaped or diamond shaped whiskers, and you're supposed to make 4 to 6 of them. I made 4 of each of these. So here is the double crochet version, and here is the single crochet version, and here they are side by side so that you have an idea of the difference in shape. So the single crochet version look more like a square, where these look like diamonds. And then we have the eyes, and it's actually the same pattern as the whiskers. So they are diamonds again in the double crochets using black, and with single crochets they are squares, just like the whisker pattern. So now that we have all the pieces here, I'm separating them in different piles from each other so I know which pieces are which. We have the double crochet pieces and we have the single crochet pieces, and just like that house, I'm gonna kind of work creatively to assemble this to make it look as much as a capybara as I can. Not sure if we're gonna do any stuffing. If anything, we'll stuff the body so that we have a little bit more volume to the shape, but unsure if I'm gonna stuff the head. And then something that occurred to me as I was showing you these pieces as well is that this pattern doesn't have any legs, so we're gonna have a little nub of a capybara, and potentially something that we might need to do to give it legs is like crochet some bobble stitches in the finished assembled piece, but there's no instructions for that. I'm looking right now, there's nothing at the bottom about adding legs or anything like that, so we're definitely going to have to see what we have and see if it really needs legs to make it look like a capybara, or if we just settle for what the pattern tells us to do. Alright, I have an update for you guys, and it is that I finished the capybaras. Honestly, they don't look like capybaras to me. They kind of look like mice. And the two different styles in which I crocheted, the single crochet and the double crochet, honestly don't make much of a difference. I use the same techniques for assembling them, which is probably the main reason they look pretty much identical here. There's obviously a little bit of a size difference, and some of the features look a little bit more exaggerated on the smaller single crochet one than they do on the double crochet one. And overall, I think out of the two of these, I probably like what this one looks like a little bit more, but like I said, it doesn't really look like a capybara to me. They come across as mice. But there's our two patterns from the AI patterns my husband generated for me in today's video. In a future video, I really want to take a look at different AI generation engines and see what kind of patterns they put out for basically like the same pattern. So for example, if we took ChatGPT, Meta AI, and Copilot and told each one of them to generate a pattern for like a capybara, obviously not a capybara, but a different sort of pattern, and have them all have to do the same thing and see what the pattern turns out looking like in each of those different engines to see what kind of patterns they come up with. I think that'll be really interesting. Let me know in the comment section if that interests you, or if you want to keep seeing videos like this where it's just one chat engine and different patterns and we just try to make it work, or just your general thoughts about how I went about it this time. Normally I don't go about the pattern more than once in one video. Normally I just make the pattern once and then we just laugh about it at the end. But this time I was just noticing that these patterns are just doing the same shape over and over again. It's just different sizes of each shape, and that's not super interesting to me. It's definitely challenging to get it to look like the way that the pattern tells you it should look like in the end, especially with the vague instructions about just like sewing things together. It doesn't really tell you where to sew things on or in what orientation or anything like that. It's just like sew this part to this part. So that's what, like, the thing that I enjoy most about these videos is just having to problem solve at the end with all the weird parts that I have. But I think that I definitely would enjoy these videos more if I was just able to have more of an experience of the first video when I was crocheting this bear, because it seemed like the pattern was actually going to make something that looked like a bear, and it did. But a lot of these patterns that I've been doing recently in episode 2 and in this episode, it just seems like the AI doesn't really know what it's doing. It's just like a one-trick pony. It makes the same things over and over again, and you're just supposed to make something from it at the end. And I know that the intended use of these AI is not to make fully perfect patterns. I completely understand that. But to make the experience a little bit more enjoyable, I think we're going to be switching to a different AI engine at the very least in future videos. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, comment down below what you're working on or if you're going to try out making this pattern on your own, and let me know in the future if you want to see more of these videos, if you like that idea about comparing different engines with the same pattern, or any other ideas you may have. I love hearing your ideas and implementing them into videos, because ultimately this content is here for you. It's not for me. It's for entertainment purposes, basically, and I want you guys to enjoy these videos as much as I enjoy making them for you. So with all that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!